This is Warren B. And I just wanted to make a quick comment on someone who at one time was an inspiration. That person is Donald Trump. At one time he was an inspiration because I like business. I love business. When I was a kid, I was in the car with my mother and we were going through downtown during lunch hour. Of course, I didn't know that I was a kid. And there were a bunch of businessmen walking with their briefcases. And I didn't know what they did. I didn't know if they were bankers. I didn't know anything about them. But I knew that they were businessmen. And I told my mother, I said, Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a businessman. And in so many ways, I have accomplished that goal. I even had an office in downtown Cleveland, right in the heart of downtown Cleveland, a consulting company. And I was on the 10th floor. So many ways I've accomplished my goal in many different ways, and I'm still accomplishing that goal. But so I liked listening to Trump talk about business, but then he played his hand, and that whole thing with the Obama birth certificate thing, he showed me that he's typical white Wonder Bread with no nutritional value. And I dug him up to this point, you know, but I don't really pay him much attention anymore. And if I do watch The Apprentice, it's really just to try to learn certain business principles from the experiences of the different people on this show. That's really, if I watch it, reruns of it. Really, I don't watch the actual show, but sometimes I do if I'm just feeling in that kind of mood. Even movies that I like are, you know, Thomas Crown Affair and The Game or Michael Douglas. A lot of Michael Douglas movies anyway, because he often plays the rich businessman. I like that vibe. And I dug Trump up to this point, but he's a typical white, you know, piece of bread that I don't even like white bread. So, but he played his hand and he showed who he really was. And I didn't know. I'm not shocked, nor am I surprised. White people can't shock me, you know. But I remember watching The Apprentice one day with he was 14, 15 at the time. My son was watching it, and we were watching it, and he made a statement out of his own mouth. See, being around me, he know what real charisma is. And looking at Trump, he just said it out of his mouth, you know, in between, like when we'll go to the commercials. He just said out of his mouth, he said, this was a young person. This is what he viewed. He said, really he lame, for real. Really he a square. But he's just proficient in business. And I have to say I agree with him. Trump is raw when it comes to business. But if he ever got in a political arena, you know, Obama will make him look as stupid as he made him look at that soiree when he was talking about his birth. That was so fucking funny. But yeah, that's the reality of the situation. But anyway, I wanted to continue this with this video clip that I just thought was interesting. Check it out.
Now, Chris Matthews, host of Hardball, and Chuck Todd, NBC News political director, chief White House correspondent, and co-host with Savannah of the Daily Rundown. Well, Chris,
I wonder why you have me on tonight.
Well, because the big picture.
We've had this on every night because it's about attitude. It's never been about fact. And the Trump card, if you will, was always in the president's hand. He knew from the beginning of this story where he was born, when he was born, what hospital he was born in. He knew he had all the truth.
Why validate the
Well, because, let me just tell you, Donald Trump bet on black. It came up red. He lost. He put all his credibility on the charge there was something fishy about the president's birth. There's nothing fishy about it. There's no news here. Everything the president said is true. Everything Trump said is not true. He said the president's records were missing. By the way, that's in the National Globe if you want to check out where his sourcing probably came from. I just checked that at the airport today. He was saying he really didn't go to the schools he went to. It was sort of a Manchurian candidate theory he was pushing, that he really wasn't who he said he was all the way through. How come nobody knew him in school? Suggesting he really wasn't Barack Obama. It went far, of course. But now the truth is nailed in front of him. And Trump's performance up to issue.
Well, the president suggested today.
The president laid it on the media, but you cannot starve. And the problem is, you have there's two debates, and we have it internally all the time. You and I have had these debates. We have them with our bosses up in New York. You and I have had these. I don't have a debate because I think there's a lot of attitude. But it's never been. No, I understand.
How do you play it? How do you cover it?
When you cover a story, when you starve a story, when you say no. Our job is to sometimes not say that you're guilty until proven innocent.
But when half the Republican
field
says they believe this nonsense.
Let me tell you why. That's exactly it. This has been informative about the attitudes of some people in this country who can't accept.
Can we call racism?
Yes, it's been sort of a roach. A lot of African Americans feel as if they racist charge. Of course they do.
It's not just African Americans. I've got to tell you that the people writing to me and the people tweeting to me, they think they are obviously missing the irony, the sarcasm, and everything else that we've been doing here for the last couple of months. But they think that this is a racist conspiracy to somehow...
That a white president would not have been asked to...
And
John
you know something? A lot of White House people are saying that to me too, white and black. And I can't argue with that. That if this were a white president, this whole issue would never...
Remember, John McCain had more questions about whether he met the issue of naturalization. So what is this exposed? It's exposed people who want to believe ridiculous stories about the president because they cannot accept his legitimacy.
Chuck, let me just play a little bit of what Barack Obama, August 29th, said to Brian Williams about this very issue. Watch.
I'm not going to be worrying too much about whatever rumors are floating on out there. If I spend all my time chasing after that, then I wouldn't get much done. I can't spend all my time with my birth certificate plastered on my forehead. It is what the facts are the facts, and so it's not something that I can, I think, spend all my time worrying about. I don't think the American people want me to spend all my time worrying about it.
So what changed?
Well, I think what changed, first of all, if they only were dealing with the decision to get this out there, release this long-form birth certificate, and walk away. What surprised me today, I think they felt like they had to do it because of these polling numbers. That was starting to creep into the mainstream too much. That Trump had this ability, instead of this being a conversation on Fox at night or on AM radio during the afternoons, it had started seeping into the mainstream media. So that was number one. But then they saw an opportunity. They see that, look at this. And so they didn't just release it. They put the president out there to make sure it give pictures to people in television so that it would get played and his statements would get played to remind independent voters, hey, look at those guys. Look at those guys. You may not agree with me on some of these issues. You may think I'm too liberal when it comes to the budget or to the deficit. You may not like some of my views on taxes, but look at those guys.
Does that create, Chris, the sense that the other guys are flaky and that I'm the serious player?
No, I think it's worse than flaky. I think their refusal to admit the election of the President of the United States is a big problem. I think this has been, as I said, a roach motel. It encouraged people who have really bad attitudes about America and what it stands for to troop forward and say this guy's not our president because of this reason. In other words, they were looking for something like this.
But Chris, let me ask you this.
And to his success as a showman, Donald Trump gave them what they wanted, something to believe, a big shot billionaire. Let me ask both of you this. You've covered politics longer than I have. These same rumors about other, whether it was Bill Clinton and his involvement in Iran-Contra. Remember that one in the crazy runway? How about LBJ? The murder trial. How about LBJ and his involvement in the supposed JFK case? Conspiracy theories are always out there. This one jumped into the mainstream.
It jumped the shark.
Yes. Well, no. It jumped into the mainstream. Because elected officials who have some authority or power, rather, or elected officials were saying it's true. And they wouldn't walk away. The only guy who deserves some credit today would be Mitt Romney, who's, he's not Mr. Excitement. But from the minute this was put to him a couple of weeks ago, he said, there's nothing to it, drop it. He didn't play the game they all play, which is, well, I do have some questions, or all these sort of... Take him at his word. That one is always he said the guy's an American, and that's it. I mean, basically, he's the only one that has really come through this looking with integrity, I think.
Well, I hope this ends it other than to undermine the credibility of the people who've been pushing it. Chris Matthews.
I think so.
Thank you. Thank you for your
passion. I think it's finished with the people in the middle. I think your reporting is actually right. About 10 to 15% of the people in the polling